And we are live. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Holy Crap, the Vlogcast. Vlogcast comes from a skeptical point of view to answer some of the questions of why. This Vlogcast started as a combination of spite, the Streisand effect, because I'm sick and tired of trying beer. I've got some leftover Prosecco because, those of you that don't know, as of recording, it is now after 12 a.m. here on the eastern seaboard of the U.S., which means it's Father's Day. I'm a dad, so I'll take it. Part of this is to follow through with the old adage that sometimes the journey is more important than the destination. I'm your main host. I'm known as Shujin Tribble, and you can find me pretty much everywhere under that name. It's Shujin. Hi. I'm going to have my little bit of a sip while I go ahead and introduce for you. First off, on the east coast of the U.S., along with me, sort of, down the seaboard a little bit. Unrenewed Tech, good morning.
Was a good morning, and then Discord just kind of blinked out on me. Oh, there it goes. It's back to normal now. Discord being cheeky today, man.
Yeah, not the first. We were talking a little bit before, and I was showing Tech some of the visual aberrations that I have to deal with over on my screen over there. So
And my screen just went like all gray, and I was like, did I just drop? So apparently it's contagious.
thanks, Discord. We appreciate it. And sorry, there was a thing that ended up happening this past week that's got me annoyed, and I almost uttered an expression I don't want to. Joining us again this week because, well, timing, and just works out well, from basically the left coast of the continent, Io, thanks for being able to join us again.
You're welcome.
This ends up being an interesting piece because of the way that everything is. Let me also move some items around because I need to make a little bit of space for things, because joining us fashionably late from Paris and other points known as the continent, Joseph, good morning. It's good to have you back. How are you?
Okay, and you? I hope you can hear me.
Can do. Doing pretty well right now. How are you?
Yeah, okay. Sorry I've missed out on the last week's, but waking up is hard to do.
Perfectly understandable. The last couple of days have been really, really tough on me in the because I'm working outside and in the afternoons. I've been going through a lot of just losing energy like crazy from the sunlight. So having to wake up early in the morning to be able to do this, told you before, man, you're here when you're here, and that's all I ask for. When you're here, you're here. After that, don't worry about it, man.
Okay. But
So
the sunlight saps your energy?
well, I mean, I'm mostly
That's
outside, so I'm kind of baking a little bit, and the heat's not been helpful. It's mostly the sunlight has just been most of the shift. I'm okay, but the reflected sun is just really killing me.
Okay.
And
yeah, I'm starting to wear sunglasses too.
yeah, you and me both then. But in any case, as always, folks, if you'd like to join us as we're recording, feel free to pop in over on YouTube, and we go ahead and we do our thing. And I can't promise everybody's going to get a berth on the show, but every once in a while it just kind of works out that way. But regardless, you can always chime in from the live chat over there, of which Stephanie, good morning again. Good to have you. Io, double duty, so to speak, and Tech, of course, doing double duty because that's kind of the way that it works. Speaking of which, Tech, if you didn't already, what you were mentioning about for another Wikipedia entry, make sure that I've got that in the notes so that I can add that after.
Show notes channel. Yeah.
Appreciate that. Yeah. Joseph.
And luckily now we have an international viewpoint to work with.
We've still got an international. Because,
you know what I mean? Straight from the horse's mouth.
Yeah. Io, would you remind?
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. I haven't worked with IO before. Sorry.
Yeah. Real quick.
Je suis Canadienne.
Now we have two.
Oh my god.
Now we have two
Hello,
international
Quebec.
viewpoints.
Not only am I Canadian, it was also my birthday today. And actually, it's still my birthday for another 2 hours and 45 minutes where I am.
Happy birthday.
Yes, I'm 25 again.
25 again.
So,
I just passed my 24th, 30th birthday.
not bad.
I turned 9 this year, mentally.
Believable. And right now, with how tired I've been, relatable. So, appreciate it. Let me go ahead and get everything rolling over here, and we'll be able to get started with the show. So, with 5 minutes on the clock, your 5-minute freestyle starts now. This week, it is labeled Trust. And believe it or not, I actually had to do a mental change as to what I was going to talk about, like, I don't know, less than a half an hour ago, because I'd completely forgotten that it's Father's Day. Now, what I was going to talk about before was, yet again, the whole difference between trust versus faith, which I've covered that before. But it just dawned on me, my dude, it's Father's Day. You should say a little something about what it means to be a dad and what trust is. Well, I didn't really think very much about that in the last half hour because I'm an idiot. And to a certain degree, I think any dad, any father worth their weight kind of feels that way most of the time anyway. Being a parent is not the easiest thing in the world. It is an incredibly difficult thing. It's helping a brand new life to become. And I know stopping it there sounds awkward as all hell in English, but it really is what it is. You're trying to assist a new life to find its way into itself. And one of the things that we as adults have on top of any of these youngsters is experience. That's what it comes down to. We just have many, many more experiences to fall back on, to evaluate the world through. And these brand new lives, they have to take a listen in order to understand better, because they don't have those experiences. They don't know how to evaluate things. They have to trust us. And I'm not saying that from the standpoint of you will, thou shalt. No, it's a matter of genetic success. When we're young and innocent, we have to trust because we don't know. It's tough to do that sometimes, especially when you end up with people that you find out later are not actually worth your trust. That's something that hurts. And I say that from the standpoint of someone that unfortunately is in that position. There are some memories that I have that are simply annoying now, incredibly hurtful at the time. Some pieces I understand now. Taking me to a couple of child psychologists to try to better understand me, back in the mid 70s, late 70s, because I was an unusual kid. In retrospect, I understand that. I get it. Not the greatest of people that I had to deal with, because I lost trust because of it. And trust for me was not exactly the easiest thing to come by in the first place. But if you're going to put yourself out there as someone to try to help, make sure that you do it. Follow up with it. For me, one of the things was a younger doctor that I dealt with when I was no longer going to be seeing him. I believe it was a matter that he was moving down to Georgia from where we were in New York, and gave me his address. I wrote him. Never heard back. Back in the day, writing letters was, the most cost-effective way to be in touch with people. Because, let me tell you, landline telephones, that got expensive. It got stupid expensive. But writing a letter and then not hearing anything back? I simply cannot tell you what the cost was for that. A good part of it was, like I said, my belief that I could trust someone that I thought that I could as a young person. So if someone trusts you, especially a younger person trusts you, be honest. If you're worthy of that trust, it'll be apparent. If you're not, be honest with yourself. Don't try to do the right thing because you think that you have to. Do the right thing because you can. And you should. Because the price, if you don't, is far higher than any of us wants to think about. So with that out of the way, let's go ahead and deal with the horrible scopes because, well, it's time to deal with the horrible scopes. So for those of you that know what your astrological sign is, cool. Those of you that don't, you can just roll a d12. It's perfectly fine if that's the way that you want to do about it. You want one of those d12s with the cute little squiggles on it. There's a company over there in Fredonia. Heart of the game, Fredonia. They'll go ahead, they'll sell you one, probably. I don't know. They say that they can't ship anything, but nobody got in contact with them, so you know what? It's fair for me to say, go stop in. Let them know that I sent you. Watch out for the mimic. It should be in the window. If it's not in the window, you got things to worry about. So, hail, hail, Fredonia, the home of the Blue Devil. Now, yeah, I know. I'm on a bit of a summer kick with the horrible scopes recently, what can I say? That's because there's plenty of choices as to what to do and how to talk about it. So, for instance, this week, we're going to suggest you take a sabbatical from your normal workplace and consider spending the next few months taking a summer job. So follow along, people. Your dream job might be just one application away. Take copious notes. And remember, you're going to need your CV even if you send it in electronically. Aries, the stars suggested you be a short-term landlord or a property manager. Never let it be said we didn't do good things for you because we told the stars no. Instead, we're going to suggest you apply to be a lifeguard. At roughly $30K a year, you'll have the chance to work at pools, water parks, beaches, watching the water for any problems. You'll be responsible for the safety of every visitor to your area of responsibility, so make sure you're well rested and, ironically enough, hydrated. So this week, remember that you have to be accepted to the job first. Don't go out and buy that little red swimsuit until you hear back.
Oh, I guess I'll go next. Taurus. Being that you have a tendency to be unfocused in your day-to-day life, we're suggesting you apply to be an intern. At nearly $50K per year, this job might suit you well. Depending on where you end up, you might have to perform data entry, handle administrative work, run the phones, or maybe handle email correspondence. No matter what, you'll be able to pick and choose which job function to handle each time. So this week, that 5K a year, 50K a year sounds good, but you might want to reconsider. Lots of interns are unpaid for some reason. Consider just staying at your current job and just take a vacation week off.
Io, over to you.
Gemini. Everyone else on this list is going to think this is a cushy job, but you know better. How about trying your luck as a freelance writer? With an average 74,000 per year, it's a pretty sweet gig. Just take your laptop to a coffee shop, get the item with the highest caffeine rating, caffeine, and start typing away. Letters, essays, and articles will be pretty tough. seeing as how you'll need to have some actual knowledge on the topics, or be really good with doing research on the topics in question. So this week, since you're not that good at handling research on a deadline, maybe offer to transcribe voice recordings for clients instead? How's your typing accuracy these days?
Cancer Moonchild. You might get some laughs at this one, but we believe in you, Cancer. How about spending the summer as a fitness instructor? With an average 48K per year, you'll have to provide workout support and direction to clients at a gym, in person, or through digital videos. Think about it this way. You could be an online streaming fitness instructor for hundreds of people at once. The only downside is that you're not exactly in your best physical shape, are you? So this week, get a bunch of people to sign up for your fitness channel and get them all to do the same workout with you. They might not be able to see the changes in themselves, but they'll see how you're improving. Then they'll have to realize that they're getting in shape right along with you.
It's easy to see how somebody else is improving instead of yourself. Leo, your job won't be the highest paid in terms of salary at just shy of 40K a year, but it's got some great perks. How about being a pet sitter? You'll have to watch pets for their owners while they're at work or out of town, meaning your schedule will be a little erratic. And you'll have to walk dogs, feed pets, perform basic grooming, and overall be a buddy to any animals in question. On the flip side, how cool is it that you get to have who only knows how many pets at a time without the true responsibility? So this week, you better be good with all animals, not just the cute ones. Because remember, for every pair of ferrets to play with, there's a bee apiary in need of a honey harvest.
This next one hits so close to home from my early years. Virgo, God, I'm sorry. Just so we're clear, we will all collectively agree that your job salary is way too low for what it is. At $43,000 per year, what could go wrong with being a retail sales associate? Yes. Yes. We hear many of you groaning in sympathy, but for those of you who don't know, officially the job description says you assist customers, answer questions, keep physical products organized, manage the cash register, handle product returns. You get the idea. You get to be every facet of the business with hardly any of the compensation, especially when dealing with bad customers. So this week, if you're going to do that job, consider having your brain hemispheres separated. If you block off one ear with peaceful music, you might be able to handle that one customer without injuring them. Remember, killing is not injuring. To be injured requires a constant state of being alive. Technicalities matter.
It's true though, isn't it?
Thank you for shopping. Don't come back now. Bye-bye.
Libra, we know you've been considering a new car, but not sure what to get. How about you kill two birds with one stone by applying to be a parking attendant? Granted, the pay ain't great at about $37,000 per year, but the responsibilities aren't that tough. Monitor parking lots, collect money from patrons, and report any misconduct to supervisor. But also, you get to see how the owners of each style of car behaves, giving you the fresh insight on what brand and model of car best fits your personality. So this week, please don't get a BMW. Please, please, please don't even sit in a BMW or Mercedes or Tesla, especially the Tesla.
The BMWs actually have a pattern down by me. If it's the low price spectrum of the BMWs, they drive like a complete asshole. If it's the really expensive BMWs, man, they know the rules of the road and no issues.
Don't want to hurt their little precious.
Well, they understand the value of their car. It's the ones who like get the low end. They treat it like, it's Twisted Metal 4.
Mm,
Sweet tooth rocks. Sorry, go ahead.
when you know somebody that's been on Canada's Worst Driver and you realize that their Mercedes-Benz was damaged from wheel well to wheel well because the wall jumped out at them, yeah, kind of wonder.
Theo, you have no idea how close you got to one of the worst jobs for blood pressure. We're suggesting you apply to be a computer technician. Oh, geez. With a salary around 43K per year, your duties will fall into one of two camps, personal or corporate. If you plan on becoming a corporate computer technician, expect the most senior tech to call you the PFY for a long time. I don't even know what that is. It's an honorific to be proud of. Just do whatever you're told, and you might get out of that job while still sane. So this week, if you think diagnosing personal computer problems and assisting customers with downloads or updates will be fun, you haven't spoken with the B.O.F.H yet. You will learn, young grasshopper. You will learn.
So PFY is pimply faced youth. BOFH
Oh,
is bastard operator from hell, which is what I am. And
And I
around
need
me,
to add that to the show notes.
yeah, and around me, we don't have PFYs. We have the FNGs, the freaking new guy.
That explains a lot.
Yeah.
the DGF. Don't give a fuck.
We have a couple of those too.
Yes, that's the one on the speed dial marked manager. Sagittarius,
Ooh.
not gonna lie, your job isn't paid well enough either. At just shy of 23K a year, we're grudgingly suggesting you put in for food service worker. Yes, you'll be doing menial tasks like taking food orders, preparing meals, managing customers at the drive-thru, and cleaning the dining area. But on the bright side, you can usually get free food on your meal breaks. So this week, if your store doesn't have a drive-thru lane, and one is suddenly generated by a mid-90s Chevy Coupe, maybe taking the next day off might not be such a bad idea. Especially if you were there when it was installed.
Well, if I unmute my microphone, this sounds so much better.
It sounds it all.
Yeah, exactly. All right, Capricorn. We'll want to trade jobs with you, Capricorn. Not for the pay at 28K per year, but for the job. How about you become a barista? Look, it's easy. Just ask the customers what they want and put it in the cup for them. Simple, right? Just remember to ask if they have any allergies or preferences in the milk type. I mean, you've got your whole milk, reduced fat milk, 1% milk, skim milk, Channel Island milk, chocolate milk, half and half, and oat milk, almond milk, soy milk. Sorry. Or their position on using olive oil or butter instead of creamer in their drink. So this week, on second thought, you just go ahead and take that job. We'll just stay over here and not deal with all that stress.
Good call.
Aquarius. Who's a good boy? Who's a good boy? Yeah, good boy. Yeah. Aren't you a good girl? Get used to saying that a lot because we're suggesting you apply to be a professional dog walker. At 32K per year, we're suggesting you make sure you have plenty of ice water bottles on you each trip out. On sunny days, with maybe a dozen dogs vying for your attention, you'll need all the strength you can get and make sure you're in shape with strong shoulder muscles so you don't pop the joints the first time they all make a break for a squirrel.
Where?
So this week, make sure you memorize squirrel. Make sure you memorize which dog belongs to which client because all the dogs you will want to go with every client every time. Oh, and Ziploc babies are your friend. Here, puppy dust. Come here.
Squirrel.
Yeah.
As an aside, please add to the show notes Squirrel Barbershop Quartet. I need to make sure that the Old MacDonald's Broken Farm Animal song is in there.
Pisces. We know you want people to just leave you alone.
Jesus,
Pause for
I
dad
know,
joke
I know,
time.
I know, I know, I know. I wrote a bad joke. All right, leave me alone.
Yeah, it's like we're talking about Father's Day. I don't have children, but I tell dad jokes. Shut up. That was a quality joke there. How about you apply to be a gardener? With a salary around 38K per year, you get a dream job. Ask your client how they want their yard to look, and you go and do it. Simple, right? Pull weeds, mow lawns, trim bushes and trees, make everything nice and safe. Make everything nice and safe in the yard. So this week, speak to your doctor to find out you're allergic to yellow jacket venom. Sooner or later, they'll pop up out of the ground, and you'll have to deal with them one way or another. And for the record, we're going to suggest purging any underground nests via the all-time honored mode known as overkill, molten aluminum.
Trust me, anybody that's had angry yellow jackets pop out of the ground will know full well overkill is underrated.
I was geocaching one time and reached underneath something and pulled out a wasp nest. It was dead. Thankfully, it was dead.
Bet it was a nice surprise.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I don't believe nice is the word that we should be going for here.
I think I hit, was it upper C or something like that?
Yeah, double high C.
Double high C, yep. Because something broke near me.
Well, see, stuff like that makes me clench up, all my muscles real tight. So I've learned to keep, when I travel to where I might get a surprise like that, I travel around with a lump of coal up my ass so I can make a diamond. It's like if I'm gonna pay the price of having all my muscles like tense up and stress out and have to pay for all that pain and suffering, I might as well get a diamond out of it.
Kinky.
Why don't you do that as a trade?
Because then if I had to do it every day, I'd get desensitized.
And I really don't think
and
that
the lump of
anybody
coal
wants
would
to
fall out.
and I don't think anybody really wants to trade him for that.
No. Safe wording.
Those are your horrible scopes for this week. Remember, if you like what you got, I don't really much care because nobody asked for anything and you got exactly what it is that you paid for. So if you would like to pay for the horrible scopes, you can just let me know that you'd like a nicer or naughtier one for yourself or someone else. Or literally bribe me. Take a swing over to the coffee page, coffee.com/Icarus the Lunar Guard. Yes, there's a story behind that. No, we're not going to tell you what the story is. It's just kind of the way that it's going to be. I will have these posted at the end of the week as usual. Tumblr, Twitter, Facebook, Discord, Bluesky. Bluesky NFTs. There's the thumb drive. Nobody wants it, apparently. I'm finally lowering my expectations to a couple of old loonies that have rusted and a couple kumquats. Nobody wants it. So, you know what? Screw y'all.
I'll give you a $2 American bill. I'll send it in the mail to you.
That won't even like cover the acrylic for making the cube. I want to make an acrylic.
I'll do that myself.
I want to make an acrylic cube. I'll make an acrylic cube. One of these days I'll make an acrylic.
Hey, you can't say you didn't get an offer.
Technically correct is the worst kind of correct because now I can't argue with that. It's episode 496 on the docket, Your Honor, and thank you for the correction on that. First Amendment versus At Will 2025. Now, I, of course, only listen to a handful of podcasts these days. Two of them are in the atheist circles because, I still listen to two very specific ones, and one just for the comedy value, because I need a little bit of comedy value in my life. I don't get enough of that. But the guys over at Cognitive Dissonance were talking about the 2025 manifesto. I don't know what else to call it, really, from the Heritage Foundation. And one of the things that caught me was them talking about how one of the ideas is to change federal employment status to at will, which in and of itself is a dangerous thing, to put it mildly. And don't worry, we'll get to that, the expectation of what that is in a second. But with the idea that if you use at will employment, you can then question anybody and everybody that's federally employed, and anyone and anybody that is undesirable for one reason or another could be summarily released back into the employment pool, which is the nicest way of saying kicking them out of the job, just that you can condense the people that you want to remain in the job. And that's one of the things where, for me, that opens up an incredible can of worms, because that's then button heads up against a First Amendment lawsuit, class action, and I don't think that that has ever been something that's been done before. And wow, how wild that would that be. So let's give everybody a real quick fill-in as to where the different positions are on this chessboard, and then we'll kind of dive a little bit further into it. So, Tech, I know full well that you were really gunning to try to explain what at-will employment is, and I'm going to warn you right about now, the glass that I have used for beer before, this one from the Oktoberfest from Presque Isle Downs, Presque and Casino from way back when. Sure. Like I said earlier, it was flat Prosecco, and I am heavily feeling the effects of it, which is something that normally does not end up happening on the show. So if I'm a little trying to keep track of what's going on a little bit harder, that's why. I definitely am feeling it. So, Tech, be my guest. Explain to the nice folks over there what at-will employment means in the most generic terms, and then feel free to kind of sprinkle a little bit more into why this is the way that it is.
Sure. First and foremost, we have the Wikipedia entry that we'll put in the show notes. So you can actually just type in at will employment and pull it up. And I'm not going to read from it because the excerpt is very long, going back how long ago this started, rulings, and so on and so forth. But the short version is that it is the ability to have an employee go, you know what? I don't want to work here anymore. Bye bye, and just walk out. Right. At the same time, there's a second side to that coin. The second side of that coin, the other side of that coin, is the company going, hey, you know what? We don't want you working for us anymore. Bye bye, get out. And they don't have to have a reason to get rid of you. Okay. They just say goodbye. Okay. So it's a given, it's a give and give relationship. Um, I give you no notice and you give me no notice. I can walk out anytime. You can fire me anytime, and you can fire me for no cause whatsoever, no justification. However, if you fire me without cause and it turns out that you did it for an illegal reason, I can still sue you. Right. So that is something that companies kind of forget when they have somebody on HR or in management who's full of themselves and they hate fat people or women or people with funny colored hair or people with tattoos or whatever. And maybe they just don't like the fact that they're smiling in the morning where everybody else isn't, which, believe it or not, people have been fired for. Um, it's all types. So at will employment doesn't protect a company from wrongful termination. It just says that if a company wants to get rid of employees, it can. Now, you do have some states that are not at will states. So that means they actually have to have a justification to fire you. But likewise, a lot of those companies that you end up working for, you're required to give them notification that you're quitting. And usually there's something like, traditionally it was 2 weeks notice in this country. Now, a lot more states are at will than ever before. And it seems like the whatever the holdouts are will probably transition that way too. Um, it does create a lot of problems though, you know? It creates labor shortages, it creates a lack of trust, and it creates a lack of respect. I mean, if a company can get rid of me without a moment's notice, if they're not even going to have the decency to say, we're going to be downsizing, you guys have got about 2 months to get out, maybe brush off your resumes, anybody who needs a recommendation, get it with your management now, that sort of thing. But they don't do that in this country. In the USA, companies traditionally, when they know they're going to be laying off a large group of people, they don't tell them till the last minute because their justification is, oh well, we don't want them destroying our company on their way out. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm gonna recount a situation that happened. Now, this is literally decades ago, so I don't have a problem with it. And to give you an idea as to how much time ago it's been, this was while my wife was still alive and the account manager for the group that I was doing telephone sales for at the time. Now, up over here, and I don't have a problem with naming names, for this group at least, I used to work for one of the biggest call centers in, well, at least here in Buffalo. I don't know how far it extended. At one point, it was known as Upgrade Corporation of America, UCA, which then merged with Lloyd's of London, so it became UCA and L. It was then bought out by SoftBank, so it became SoftBank Services Group. So some people might recognize some of those names, maybe not.
I actually recognize Lloyd's.
So at one point, my wife was the account manager for Borland Software. And for those of you that are wondering, Borland
Really?
Software was the account manager. She was the account manager between Borland Software and SoftBank Services, SSG.
Dude, I still have my Borland C++ package on my shelf with the book that's bigger than everything.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, over on my wall over here, I still have a product box for Paradox 7, and I have Delphi Client Server 2, which at the time was a $2,000 product that I was given when they left. I was, as you can probably imagine, being that I was the phone jockey, she occasionally would tell me about a couple of things that were happening. Not, nothing that was like huge, because a lot of the stuff was just day-to-day stuff. But when it came time for when they were going to be disengaging from us, I got to know about it. She told me about it, and she told me clearly, can't say anything. And when the rest of the people in the call center asked me about it, because they knew that, my wife was the account manager, and since I didn't work directly for her, it was okay. I had to say, if I could say anything about anything, I would. I can't say anything about anything, and don't you think that if I could, I would. Which was just ambiguous enough to still be right for the company. And it killed me, because I knew full well answering in any way, shape, or form, even a non-answer, would have been, I was going to lose trust. And I knew it, and there was nothing I could do about it. So later, when it became time for several of us to be let go, and not at this point, this is a different thing later, the company intentionally waited until a Friday at the end of shift so that people could be told as a group, come on in at the end of your shift, and cool, you're all clocked out of everything. Excellent. Your services are no longer needed. We have your termination information here. We will walk you each to your cubicle to retrieve any of your personal effects, and please leave your keys and badges and whatnot at security as you leave. There are certain things that you are not allowed to do anymore along that line, which is specifically having security walk each individual back to their cubicles to do that kind of thing, because it puts a bad light on everything. But yeah, the whole idea of just you're just out of a job for no reason is almost as bad as if there is a reason, because they can just make up whatever reason they want, or worse, just say no reason. Joseph,
By the way, I need to correct myself real quick.
Sorry.
It turns out every state in the U.S. is at will by default. However, Montana defaults to, unless otherwise written in your hiring contract, defaults to a probationary period, after which termination is only lawful if for a good cause. So there's still wrongful termination protections and federal statutes and things like that, but every state in the U.S. is now at will by default.
Yeah, and I should have pointed out that
I'm too old.
that at will does make it easier for an employer to say we're terminating employment and just leave it at that with no reason, versus making up a reason that's just bullshit and then finding out afterwards because somebody found the information and forwarded it, just to find out that it was a bullshit reason, and the actual reason was unlawful, put it mildly. Joseph, you being over there in Paris and in France, and employed the way that you are, and I'm not going to go into the specifics, of course, at the moment. I have to imagine this whole, considering some of the protests that we've heard over the last couple of years, the whole idea of at-will employment and consequently at-will firings has got to be absolutely not looked on very, very kindly from the populace over there, right?
It's zero. It doesn't exist here. I mean, an employer, even well, I'm practically a civil servant now, but even in the private industry, yeah, if you're an employer, you have to be damn careful before signing a contract, because once that person's hired on, it's hard as hell to fire them. Hello?
No, I'm with you.
Yeah, we can hear
okay. Yeah, okay.
I'm with you.
That's
I was
the sound of many Americans' brains breaking.
Yeah.
Imploding, yeah. But,
yeah. And of course, making sure that there wasn't anything further to go along with it.
No. And yeah, even if the reason is economical, well, there are benefits that come with that as well. And plus, yeah, foreknotice as well. So they have to give notice ahead of time.
And IO, for you, thoughts, ideas?
I've just been trying to get a job ever since I got my green card back in December. My health hasn't been all that great, but I've been having fun watching this woman called Veronica and all the people that have been doing cartoons about her. You know,
Yep.
you know exactly who I'm talking about.
I know exactly who you're talking about. Long before they started doing the cartoons of her, she's fantastic. So, go ahead.
Veronica is actually teaching people how to insert their rights in an employment situation, how to convince their manager that, having me available after hours and not being paid for might be a bad thing. Having my cell phone forcibly turned off at work so I can't contact my children or spouse, or they can't contact me, might actually be a bad thing if you require me to be in contact at work.
Is
Um,
is this the person that does YouTube shorts with a coffee mug that has printed out UNT on the side of it?
that's another one.
Ah,
She's also wonderful, but she's more how to deal with business interactions. Veronica is actually, these are my rights, and I am going to stick them up and make sure that you don't forget about them.
good.
You want me to be on call 24/7? Well, okay, from 5 to midnight, it's going to be this hourly rate, which is my normal hourly rate, but that would put me over 40 hours real quick. So I'm going to expect some overtime. From midnight to 7 a.m., I will expect that you will not need me, so my phone will be off. We can't pay you that. Well, then don't call me. And I think it's Australia that's the first country of the world that actually put in your employer cannot contact you after hours.
Ooh,
Yeah, there's several countries that do that now. Like Japan actually had to write a law dictating that companies are forbidden from contacting you after business hours are over, because they were trying to protect the mental health of their citizens. Oh God, a government actually caring about their people. What a concept.
yeah, right.
Yeah, no kidding. But yeah, several of the Veronica videos are fantastic. And actually,
Several, all of
yeah,
them.
well, yeah, I haven't watched them all, but I remember one of the ones I saw was where Veronica was pointing out that she put overtime on her card, and the company's like, "Why did you put overtime?" Well, because you called me after hours, and after hours, I'm freelance and I bill 2 hours, in advance. It's first call, whatever. You have me do this stuff, and so I billed you 2 hours. Well, why'd you put it as overtime? It was like, well, because I already worked over the 40 hours I was scheduled that week. Well, I don't know if the company's going to approve this. Well, or did you ask the board to approve you calling me after hours and having me do work off the clock?
And the
And
manager is silent.
yeah, it's I'm a dad too, and one of the pieces of advice I gave my offspring was, hey man, in the things that you're good at, the things that you have experience and training and knowledge of, hands on, coming out of graduation, go join a union, because the union's going to make sure that you get certain things that you can't get if you're not collectively bargaining with the companies that you work for. And that's part of the problem with that will work, is that it does help the company more than it helps you. It's companies are not allowed to fire you for going on strike, but if you are doing at will work with no contract in place, they can fire you and say, oh well, we were just downsizing. See, now you have to prove that they fired you because you went on strike. And if it's just one person, it's kind of hard to do that. But like Starbucks learned the hard way because they got spanked. When you have a
Mhm.
pattern of doing it, and those people all get together and collectively go after a company, then the government can go spank them.
Yeah, let's
Although it's
let's also have a big congratulatory whoop for the fursuiter who has inadvertently become the mascot of the Starbucks unions.
oh god, yeah,
Because
that was fantastic.
what greats, what great personalities there are in the furry community. As one of them, of course, yes.
Well, when you have a community that's used to supporting people around them and treating them humanely, um,
Hell yeah.
Yeah, it's really easy to unionize those people because they understand the concept of working together for each other. And that's where some people get a bad idea about unions. Some people say, oh, well, unions are terrible. Okay, the concept of a union is fantastic for the employees. Okay, period. End of conversation.
Yep.
Because that gives you the ability to collectively bargain for your salary, for your benefits. And I don't mean like, oh, the company has chosen these two companies that cost them the least amount of money, and you have to pick one of the two of them for it. It's like, no, 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 no. We have decided this is what we want for our benefits. Have a nice day. You know,
And the pay
but
scale is transparent. It's not hidden behind. You can't talk about your pay grade. You can't talk about how much you're getting paid. You can't talk about it. You can't, which
you
is
can in
illegal
this
in the
country.
United States.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Even if you
employers
sign a
will tell.
contract, it's still federal law saying that you you can talk about your compensation package. You can talk about how many vacation hours you're getting. You can talk about how much monetary compensation you get. You can talk about you getting stock options. You can talk about your paid time off. You can talk about these things, people. It is a guaranteed right. And if a company says in their handbook that you can't talk about it, which a lot of them do, it's illegal. They can't stop you. And if they fire you for it, get it in writing that you broke the company law saying that you couldn't talk about it, and then go see a lawyer.
Yeah. There's one other piece about this, and this kind of wraps back around from my opening. When you are working with a union as an individual of part of that union, the union has been in place for however long it's been. And unions in general stretch back quite a long ways in the American workforce, never mind the rest of the world. So the idea that any individual will have more knowledge about how to operate corporate malfeasances, shall we say, as compared to the collective uh, uh, known memory for the union in general. Nah, man, it just doesn't work that way. Unions have been in place for a very long time in general, even if various ones are relatively new. They know they know the bullshit that's going to happen. They know how to work with it and against it. So you
And the
you
only time,
you get a lot.
yeah, and the only time a union is a bad thing is when the members of the local, a union as a whole is comprised of one or many little locals. So you might hear um, the, oh, what's a big one?
Mad Scientist
I
31415.
No, 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 no. I actually just saw a sticker the other day. IUOE, International Union of Operating Engineers. Um, they have locals all over the place, but they all fall under one union. But a local might be there might have 5 locals in Virginia, 10 locals in Maryland, 13 locals in Pennsylvania, and so on. Okay, and kind of like a franchise. The thing is that the locals are only as good as the people comprising it. Okay. So if the people in that local aren't looking out for each other and instead they're trying to take advantage of each other, then it's going to be bad. Okay. And if you've joined the union and you realize, hey man, these people are not looking out for each other, they're being very predatory. It's upon you at that point to go to the higher up of the union and go, this local needs to be looked at. They got a lot of shady crap going on. We need to clean house and let them do it. Because if you let the bad apple spoil in the bunch of good apples, it's going to taint the whole batch. I've seen a local clean house. It's not a pretty thing, but it's a needful thing. And it keeps the unions more honest. It keeps them more respectable. It keeps them helping you and everybody that's in it. Right? And it's a benefit to the company that hires the people that work for that local too, because now there's more honest contract negotiations, and that benefits everybody.
And unions will actually they'll
Blah, blah, blah.
work together in order to cause action to actually happen. Back when I was in grade 7 in the 80s, the BCGEU went on strike. The BCTEF went on strike.
Oh,
So
whoa,
BCGEU
whoa.
is the BC Government Employees Union.
Okay.
BCTEF is the BC Teachers Union. Those two went on strike at the same time. My mother and I were actually looking at starving because she didn't have any savings. We had just moved there about 2 years earlier. And 3 years earlier. So she didn't have any savings. She didn't have anything to fall back on. But we had a family thing back in Ontario we had to go do. So we flew to Ontario. The tickets had been bought months earlier. Grandparents' ex anniversary. We were watching the news daily, and the strike ended the day we got back from Ontario. But a whole bunch of changes were made. About 5-6 years ago, no, a bit more than that, the BCTEF went on, or the BCTEF, whatever, went on strike again. They've had various strikes. This one lasted a couple of months, and it was actually into the school year. And it started in April, it went through the summer, and it started again in September. It was middle of October, early November when it finally ended. And I think that the union was told, you better end this now. We need to get the kids back to school, because it was affecting the parents, because the parents had to watch the kids, affecting this, affecting that, affecting that. And the government at the time was trying to basically bankrupt the union. And other unions are going, here, have some cash. Keep on going. And other unions were joining in on the fight. It was really bad, but it had some changes.
So the piece about this whole thing, though, to deal with is that for the individuals, this is a really good thing. Unions help smooth out how things work between the people that are actually doing the heavy duty work and the people who are running the operation to keep them reined in so that they can't just run roughshod over everybody.
So I was part of a union. I'm not going to say which one I was. I'm not even going to mention my local because they don't need any bad press or anything like that. But one thing I remember when I was apprenticing is I was talking to the lawyer who worked out of our local and that lawyer worked specifically with contract negotiations. And I was getting an education on what he actually does. What does part of my due, because part of my due pays that man. So he worked for me. And there were things he said that if I ever needed, I could go to him for, because with regards to the contract and what's going on. And one of the things he said that is that one of the things that he hates about his job was when he would go in for contract negotiations and the companies that were trying to hire us would say, why can't you just treat your people like Walmart employees? They just get them when it came time to navigate which healthcare package we were going to get.
What is going on?
Sorry about that.
Bless you. Anyway,
Yeah.
why couldn't you be more like Walmart, where they just give their employees crap packages and crap pay, and then we can have more money for ourselves? And he would hear it over and over again in various formats, but it was always the same thing. Why are you treating your people like human beings? So that's what my money went to. My money went to paying for an attorney to force the companies that were going to hire out my skill set to treat me like a person rather than a commodity or a cog in a wheel, cog in the machine. The other thing it paid for, it it went into part of my dues, actually went into retirement. It was a guaranteed retirement fund, not a not that I had to pay into 401k, it was something else. And we actually had a person who was hired who that person's sole job was to manage that fund for us, to make sure that we understood every aspect of what we were investing in. If we want to invest it more, how to do it the right way, how to get the best returns, how to uh, where to go to see what's going on. And that person was essentially, through my dues, somebody that answered to me too. I basically had people under me. I had a lawyer underneath me. I had a financial advisor that I was paying for, and I could use them. And it also guaranteed that if I moved to a different state, I could go to another local and go, "Hey, here's my card. I need a job." "Oh, sure, yeah, we got you." Sure, there's the whole seniority thing and everything else. But I tell you what, if you tell them that you're moving into an area you call ahead, they'll start looking for you before you even get there. Show me another company that does that. Show me any company that does that. That's not still back in 1990 or 1950 or 1960.
Yeah.
Even with all the issues that I've grown up watching unions, all the strikes, all this, that, it was actually good to have the union as my mother's protector growing up. I'm a union baby, okay? If I have a chance to join a union, and I did at one point, I will join a union. When I was growing up, my mother's union contract was sitting there on the library shelves that she had. I took it down one evening and decided to read it. It was complicated, definitely lawyerese and stuff like that, but I could see what the raises were that she was supposed to be getting. I could see everything. I could see the rules that she was supposed to be following. And the union that I joined 2018, 2019, something like that, I was only there for a couple of months. I couldn't hack the job. And about a year later, so 2020, during the pandemic, I got an email from them. "Would you like your job back? We need people." No, I don't want my job back. I couldn't do it.
One of the fun parts about working union is I knew that on the job site that I was on, because my union was construction based, on one of the job sites, the pay scale for apprentices was different based on the position that we were holding as an apprentice. And there were several. Um, and at one point we lost an apprentice, not to like any unaliving or anything like that, just they moved on. Um, and it was more important to have the position that they had vacated filled than what several of us were holding. So they went to the three of us. They went in sequence of experience and hired on time and such. So I was like second in line to take to be asked. The first person asked was like, "Nope, I like it where I am at. I like it. I understand that you're offering a pay increase for it, but I'm good. I don't want to do that thing." They came to me, were like, "This is the pay increase we're offering. Do you want it?" I said, "Hell yes. I got a kid. I'll take it." And they're like, "It also comes with increased hours. So you're going to be hitting this." And because of how our attorney negotiated our contract, any hour over 40 hours was automatically time and a half. And if the company wanted us to work weekends, even the apprentices, the supplied apprentices and the journeymen alike, it was automatically double time, even if we hadn't hit 40 hours. I was making bank. It was
Yeah.
long. It was backbreaking. It was during the heat waves and during the hottest parts and the coldest parts. It was hellish. But yeah, man, I I took the extra pay. It got me through a lot of hard times that I absolutely needed it. Part of me wishes I still was there, but the other part of me knows that I probably wouldn't have been able to last much more than just a couple of years after, as long as I was there for.
So, Joseph, now that you've had an earful of the current state of employment hellscape that is the United States and its wonderful capitalist system, and having lived over there in Paris for a while now and gotten to see how things work, Are you quite happy staying and being employed over there in Paris instead of, coming over here and having to deal with all this bullshit?
um, well, it's kind of hard to say because in my first years here, I was on my own. I was never employed by anyone as a as a contract photographer. But now that I'm working for the state, yeah, well, there's quite a few advantages here, and workers are quite well protected, to a point of, well, some would even say they're spoiled in comparison to some countries, especially the U.S. Like the recent protests, they were all about the government putting the retirement age back up to 64 from 62, where it was for a few years.
I saw the news articles on that. I followed that closely.
Yeah.
I was like, Americans need to be watching this because France has something to teach us.
Oh, yeah. If Americans could actually organize and not end up in riots, changes could be made.
Oh, the companies would be scared as hell of us.
And
They are
well,
scared as hell of us because that's why they send ringers in order to start the riots.
yeah, the riots here, the protests here tend to be pretty peaceful. But yeah, there's always there's something here called Black Bloc. Well, just basically um, people seeking to cash in on the distraction caused by the protests. But actual cases of vandalism or whatever by the protesters themselves, it's relatively low. But yeah, just it's pretty hallucinating seeing a cortege, how do you say, a procession from Place de la République to Montparnasse. I mean, you've got this huge boulevard just like completely filled with people, and I mean, you can't move. You've got to move with the crowd. And yeah, I just for fun, I walked through that last time because my colleagues had gone, and I'd never been to a protest before actually, and yeah, I just had to see it. So yeah, it was an experience. But I mean, when you see that number of people in the streets, that could put the fear into a certain number of. Well, anyways, it's a good way of demonstrating that people aren't happy. But over this retirement debacle, the government ended up just ignoring the protests, and they forced through the law to put the age back up to 64. But that's going to be one of the principal changes. You know that the French government is just there's going to be legislative elections at the end of this month because our president just dissolved the government after the European elections.
I was not paying attention to that part. I had not heard.
Really?
Somebody's
Okay.
job's in trouble.
Yeah, I don't know. We still don't know why they did that, but it's just Europe has just taken a huge swing since last weekend to the extreme right because they won the elections in Europe, and and the legislative elections here, it's going to end up extreme right, and the extreme right are very corporate friendly and very anti-union.
I think the extreme right kind of forgot that France has a history with a sharp object.
That the last time it was used was 1977.
I'm just saying,
Star Wars was out for several months and it was still in use.
Americans don't have that history, but France definitely does. That's like the one country I wouldn't want to be the far right in. I'd rather send my people somewhere else where it'd be a little bit safer if I was that kind of a person.
There,
Because
don't mix up the far right with the royalists. Huh? That's
that too.
it's another form of fascism.
That is. Now,
Mm.
the reason why I was trying to pull all this together and make sure that we had that as a piece to remember about is very specifically because this idea that, Stephanie had pointed out, where is it over here? Stephanie pointed out, maybe that should be, meaning the Heritage Foundation's 2025 manifesto, should be called the Insurrectionists' Bible.
Yes.
That's not an inaccurate term for it. Now, the reason why I wanted to single out this particular piece is that here in the United States, the much lauded First Amendment to the Constitution is the one that is supposed to grant, and many people incorrectly lay out what it's supposed to be. One of the first things is the right to quote-unquote free speech. And I'm using that quote-unquote in this particular case, not because that's what's actually in the amendment as written, because it's not. It's the idea that you should be allowed to say whatever it is that you want to say, especially if it's unappreciated speech, in order to protest pretty much anything, unless there is compelling reason why the government should stifle such speech. And that's basically the wheelhouse of how that's been crouched over the centuries. And by centuries, I mean 2.5. The idea that changing all federal employee status to at will gives the employer, which at this point would mean the federal government, the opportunity to eliminate people from positions, not physically eliminate, just professionally eliminate from positions in the government.
Exterminate.
Supposedly without reason. But behind the scenes, it would be as simple as take a look through someone's publicly accessible social media posts. And if they are, quote unquote, undesirables for those in charge, just let them go. Don't say any reason why. Don't give a reason why. They just, we don't need you in the position anymore. Thank you very much. Your time with the group has been appreciated, and you are no longer a vetted personality in the government. Oh, you wanted a letter of recommendation. I guess that request got lost somewhere in the email heap somewhere. So that people who are more amenable to certain positions of those higher up in positions of government agency could condense more power, and people who are willing to bend rules here and there. And for anybody that wonders, could that really happen? That couldn't really happen, could it? Might I remind you that back in the 70s, the Church of Scientology invaded, for lack of a better way of putting it, various levels of federal government so that they could find information, find documents, find pieces of research, inform the Scientologist higher-ups, and in some cases remove or destroy the information so it couldn't be used against them later. Memory serves, I do believe that was called Project Snow White, I think. I'll have to double check that, but I've mentioned it in other shows before, so it shouldn't be hard for me to find that one out. Just make sure I've got a note over there to have me look up for that. Thanks. But this is a terrifying concept because that would mean that if Republican control happens in the United States at the highest levels of government, again, in the near future or even the far near future, if this manifesto is enacted, 250 years of this experiment on this continent is gone in a whimper. And I would like to say, I wish it was hyperbole, but I really, really don't think that it would be, because there are a number of people who lived through the 1930s who screamed at us, pointing to their forearms and said, "This is what I lived through already once before, don't do it again." And there were just so many people that just said, well, that couldn't really happen. You're just being an alarmist. You couldn't possibly be right again. And the ones who deny history are also the same ones who did not pay attention to history. And we know how that plays out.
My spouse, one of his uncles had the tattoo. And I actually asked him about it. Did any of your family have it? And the discussion that he had afterwards, the story, it was just like, it was terrifying. And somewhere in the jewelry that's here from, I think, either his mother or from one of his previous wives. I'm wife number 3. Yeah, I put my life in danger here. Anyway, one of the pieces of jewelry that I found was a Star of David, very much like what they wore. And I think I showed it before, but months ago. So if the United States was to do stuff like that, honey, we're going back to Canada. I know you've never lived there, and I know you don't like the cold, but we're going to Canada.
Take me with you.
Sure, I can have a common law husband up there.
I'd have to ask my SO about that first.
Okay, bring them too.
Nothing wrong with a throuple up there. Stephanie had also pointed out, and I'm gonna say this out there so it's properly out there. Stephanie's saying what is also gone is the knowledge and experience needed to run government. Your whole country will fall apart. Unfortunately, that is far and away too true. A lot of the people who have had generational knowledge, and the fact that we even need it in the capacity that we've had it, to me is disgusting. I'll explain in a little bit. But I also pointed out, and this is for me absolutely part of the reason why public education's been under attack and underfunded for almost literally the entirety of my lifetime. Once upon a time ago, you got out of high school. Now, admittedly, we've had an incredible technical revolution since, but you got through the extent of public schooling here in the United States, which gets you up to age roughly 18. You, at the time, and with the economy, and with the way that stuff was, you could not only survive, but you could pretty well thrive get a good get a good job, get a job that you could stay with effectively for your lifetime. You wouldn't need to jump from position to position. You would have the possibility of upward mobility and admittedly now the economy has changed. The workforce has changed. The what needs to be done for employment has changed. And it's not for the better. Because over my lifetime, things have gone purposefully sideways and backwards. Public education has continued to be, I want to say, underfunded. And I wish I could put a little bit more nuance on it, because it's been funded enough. And you hear the nuances I'm putting into it. It's enough, kinda. I mean, you've got enough to keep the buildings up and cleaned. But as
In
far as
some neighborhoods,
I'm sorry.
yeah, in some neighborhoods, but I mean, education has been both underfunded and overpriced where it comes to the private sector. But just dumbing down, we've talked about this so many times before. I mean, since Reagan's time, that's when it more or less began. But going back to your opening monologue about Father's Day and trust and all that, well, for our parents, the survive by imitation model worked because your employer, you did what you were told and you would get a decent salary. And if you followed the rules without questioning them too much, you'd be able to afford a decent home, support your family, and all that. But we've seen both an increase in profit margins and the dumbing down. I mean, the abuse by more or less shareholders over the years. They just want more and more and more. And the only way that they can maintain that is to just have a non-thinking populace. Just people just like, that's what the dumbing down serves.
Yeah.
Because I mean, if you imagine people actually, asking questions and like thinking about things, it's just the situation, especially from Canadian point of view, especially where your healthcare system is concerned, that'd be just completely intolerable.
Yeah, no argument there.
Our healthcare system in Canada is one that will cover you for critical injuries and shit, but if you want month-to-month medical care, good luck finding a doctor.
That's another problem.
Mm-hmm.
The system is there, the system is good, but nobody, to put it simply, the pay is shit. And doctors and nurses, they put up with so much that it's not worth the pay.
Yeah, for certain parts, it's excellent. It will absolutely help someone in an emergency. And you won't go bankrupt because you suddenly broke your leg. More importantly, broke a rib, impacted a lung, need to be driven to a hospital so that you don't die, and consequently don't end up paying for the rest of your life or until you take your own life the medical cost for just the ambulance drive itself.
Yeah, which is just, it's outrageous what they charge there. I mean, it's just not justifiable at all.
Yeah.
When you...
Canada, BC,
yeah.
$50 for an ambulance trip. The ambulance jets from northern BC, bit more, and yes, you were out of pocket. Down here, I had a collapse at City Hall because I was screaming at City Hall because of how they were treating seniors. And, well, I didn't actually scream, but I gave my speech. And I felt my heart start to race and do a funky beat. And I looked at my watch and I watched the pattern and I sat down on the floor because sitting down on the floor was better than falling on the floor. The fire chief himself told me that I was going to go to the hospital because I was having issues. That 10-minute ride to the hospital is almost $4,000, and I've got no clue how I'm going to pay it. I won't even talk about the 4 days I was in the hospital.
And that the thing that annoys me the most is that continues because people keep on paying it. If people wouldn't pay it, if there's some sort of en masse unionize, well, people together, they just agree, no, we're not going to pay this anymore, then they wouldn't do that anymore. But I mean, it's been just since the 1980s, it's been chip, more profit, more profit, more profit. And actually just earning a profit from somebody else's tragedy, I mean, that in itself is just, to anyone who thinks for themselves, it's just intolerable.
So what we have going on in this country right now is completely unrestrained capitalism.
But no, it's greed.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes. Unrestrained capitalism allows greed to be the major motivator for everything, because unrestrained capitalism, right, which again is perpetuated by greed, goes for infinite growth. But the problem is that resources and personnel are not infinite. Time is not infinite. So eventually that growth plateaus or even plummets. And when it happens, the people who pay the price are the people, not the companies, not the corporations, and so on. And
but they're still making their profits.
Yeah, off of the backs of people.
Yeah.
The people have to demand the restrictions. And that's something that the people in this country, the USA, don't do. And
well, just from the most basic, I mean, profit. This is the simplest concept. Profit is taking more out of the economy than what you put in.
But the problem here,
at the very base, and that's unsustainable.
Now, the problem with this is, conceptually, here in the US, societally, having profit is good. It is the whole.
Greed is good.
It is exactly the eight. Oh God, what the hell was the name of the movie? What was it? The Wolf of Wall Street, was that it?
Wolf of Wall Street. Yes.
Wolf of Wall Street.
Wolf of Wall Street.
Where the expression was, greed is good, and that's something that's ingrained itself into. I don't know if I'm using the right expression for it, the zeitgeist of how the United States has operated for. Well, it's fair to call it decades, if not a century, or even longer, because I mean, we've had times here in this country where there has needed to be regulation been put into place in order to restrain this capitalistic monstrosity, the ability of breaking up various companies that have monopolized other places, their industries, not the least of which would be American Steel, I think is what it was. I could be wrong. I forget what the name of it was. And once upon a time ago, the company now known as Verizon or AT&T, because American Telephone and Telegraph, AT&T, was Edison's thing, and that became the monopolization of the entire telecommunications industry and had to be broken up into 7 different groups, if memory serves. And now how many of them are back collected again, over and over again? It just works out that way. The problem is, nobody understands in this country. All right, some people do understand. I'm being hyperbolic about it. As a society, we don't understand that the amount of wealth accumulated by Jeff Bezos at Amazon, if it were transferred into being physical product, gold, he would have a larger stash than a multi-hundred-year-old dragon known as Smaug, who had a literal mountain of gold as a hoard that he protected. Conceptually, we don't even think of that. We can't conceptualize of that, and we don't understand
Of
that,
course we can.
and meaning that we can't conceptualize it as every bit of that gold could have gone to who only knows how many other people and still have more than enough to live off of for 100 lifetimes.
But you can't just capitalize on the guy accumulating all the wealth. He's not thinking about the people. It's also the people paying into that.
Yep.
They're also responsible. Like I've said so many times before, the dead Kennedys had it right. Give me convenience or give me death. Well, if you're willing to pay, $1 more for some extra convenience, then most people will be willing to do it. So if you tap into an industry that touches pretty well everybody, like the energy or healthcare or like Amazon,
The
for example,
literal everything.
yeah, then yeah, of course you're going to cash in. But it's also us. We're just we're feeding it. We're feeding the system.
There's no
Well,
patient. There's no patient union in order to fight the insurance companies.
No,
there's a reason why I stopped shopping at Walmart. There's a reason why I got rid of my Amazon stuff. There's a reason why I got rid of a lot of things. It's because I'm trying not to. I'm trying to be one less person that's feeding the machine that is taking advantage of all the people around us.
Agreed.
And unfortunately,
I mean,
it's really, really hard to do that because so many companies, especially here in the United States of America, take advantage of everybody. It's really hard to find a company that isn't anymore.
well, they
Uh,
take advantage of our of basically of people's laziness, both intellectual and physical.
well, not always laziness either. Sometimes it's really hard to get the things that you need, not the stuff you desire, but the stuff
Mm.
you need without going through the companies who are controlling those things. And when you
Oh,
have, you know, like not
yeah,
everybody can go to a farm and get milk from a farmer.
yeah.
Not everybody can go to a farm and get eggs from the farmer. Not everybody
Mm.
can go to a farm and get fresh cow or fresh pig or fresh vegetables. Sometimes they have to go to the grocery store. Sometimes, because of where they live, they only have a few options, and none of those options are good options. They're the only options. You know,
Yeah, fast food or
the
Walmart.
f- yeah, I mean, forget fast food. I'm just talking about just getting the basics.
Yeah.
Oh, right now there is a boycott of one of the major retailers in Canada, Loblaws.
Yeah.
So that's the Real Canadian Superstore. That is Loblaws. That is Shoppers Drug Mart. No Frills. All those places are being boycotted. Not every single Canadian is doing the boycott, but apparently there are enough of them that are.
Why?
Looking at the prices, they're insane.
But why are they boycotting them? Is it because the prices are so high, or
Yeah,
okay?
I have been spending time in the Boycott Loblaws Reddit subreddit and just looking at some of the stuff. Okay, 1 kilogram of feta cheese is $19.99. So 2.2 pounds of feta cheese. That's more than twice what you would pay for in the United States, even with the conversion.
Yeah.
And that's just one item.
Because another thing, it's funny. My parents are moving to an apartment, and this is in London, Ontario, and the real estate prices there are just outrageous. Like rent in an apartment in London, Ontario, it's more expensive than Paris. Can you imagine?
Yeah.
And I just, one my parents, like even a few years ago, I was considering moving back, and I just looked at the job situation there, and I looked at the apartment prices and all that, because no way I could buy a house. I was starting up again there, and it's just, I was like, no fucking way, I'm better off here.
I mean, during
And it's
COVID,
just completely unjustifiable. And like, I'm not mad at my parents, but I'm a bit dismayed that, well, they sold their house off. Okay, they could profit from the housing boom, if you could call it that. I don't even know if it's a boom anymore. But anyways, prices have gone up. So on one end, they could profit from that, but on the other end, they're going to be again feeding the system that, as long as people pay rent like that, well, landlords are going to continue asking it without putting any real work into anything themselves.
during 2020, 2021, there was a pattern of people going around that had money buying up RV lots, trailer parks, if you will. And then what they were doing is they were raising the rates that it cost you to park your RV there. Okay. Now, mind you, some people when they hear RV, they think the self-powered motorhomes. Yeah, sure. In some cases like that. In other cases, it's a big trailer that you have hauled to a lot, hooked up to electric and waste removal and water and such. But you need a truck or something to tow it, something heavy duty to move these things in some cases. Because some of these are big enough to have, a family of 4 in there. It's a tight fit, but, they can fit. And the thing that they were doing is that they were going in and they were raising the rates, which were driving the people out because they couldn't afford the rates. But at the same time, they couldn't afford to move them either, because you think, oh, they could just drive away. It's like, no, they can't. There is financial burden involved in moving these things depending on what you have. And some of these people were on fixed limited income to begin with. And it didn't matter. They were driving them out. Well, based on certain states and certain laws, if the people didn't vacate, they were able to force them off the property. If they didn't pay their bills in a certain amount of time, they could claim the RV or the trailer as collateral and then sell the stuff if nothing came. People were literally losing their homes. The rates were skyrocketing. And so what they did is many of them realized that they could actually form um, a, a housing union, and that started spreading through the RV and trailer park communities like crazy. People started banding together. They started contacting the companies or the individuals who own the park saying, hey, look, we want to buy you out. Here's our reasonable offer as we can prove in a court of law, blah, blah, blah. And the ones who did that, they're safe now for a while. But the ones that didn't, they literally, in many cases, lost their homes. And then these kids, these people, and these soulless corporations started going around buying apartment complexes and doing the same thing because they wanted the more expensive customers. So they were raising the rates saying, oh, well, we're going to fix this, we're going to fix that, we're going to fix this. But many of them got caught not fixing a damn thing, just raising the rates to drive people out. And they were allowed to get away with it. That's the thing. They were actually allowed to get away with it in many cases. So in this country, here in the US, a lot of the housing market, they say, oh, well, everything went up because there was high demand. Excuse me. Yeah, we have a lot of people in this country. We also have a lot of housing. Sure, COVID slowed down the housing construction, but not anymore. But they're still using the same excuse and they're still raising rates. And one of the things I told my offspring was, look, you have zero debt right now. You actually have money saved up. Whatever you do, don't try to get a house with a mortgage right now. It is not the time to do it. You will be bent over a barrel. Continue building up your credit score, although it's not going to matter much in the future, probably. Um, and in all honesty, um, if things take a south turn, you should think about traveling outside the country, find some places that you like, and maybe consider getting a dual citizenship. And yeah, I mean, That was my advice to the next generation. Maybe you should move out of the country. And the
Or
sad thing
move.
is, they agreed with me
Oh, I got into an argument with
because
my
they follow.
father about whether or not I had a house and why didn't I have a house. I was renting subsidized housing at the point. The reason why I collapsed at City Hall was because I was fighting for seniors at one of the mobile home parks in the area where the landlord changed and the new landlord tripled the rent. They managed to band together and stop it. Now the landlord has decided that instead of it being senior housing and only senior housing, he's going to change it into all ages housing. He's just broken every single lease in that park. And City Hall doesn't want to do anything about it.
And Project 2025 is all about big businesses doing whatever they want, damn the little people. And if people think it only applies to their job, they're in for a rude awakening when this stuff translates to companies owning. If you look around, there are companies all over the place advertising, hey, we buy your house for cash in hand. That is not a person doing that. That is a corporation doing that.
Mm-hmm.
They buy the house, they do fix it up, but then they jack up the price to compensate everything they put into it. Plus, they want what they think they can get for it, not what the market actually demands, but what they want. So it's not. There are houses by me that are still for sale. They've been fixed up. They've been bought out by these. Were bought by these companies that say, "Hey, we'll give you cash for your house," and they're still for sale. They have not been sold in my area because they're too freaking expensive. Because these companies are like, "Hey, we can sit on it. We'll just keep jacking up the price if we start losing money." Oh, we're losing money? Tax write-off because we're a company.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The
I've always wondered about the companies like here in Paris. There are so many boutiques that have shut down, like mom and pop shops,
And
and they just sit empty. Like it's incredible, and I'm wondering, an empty property. How much does that cost the owner?
Pennies on the dollar when it's a company writing it off on their taxes as a loss.
If they can write it, yeah, if they can write it off. Never
Here
thought
in the
of that.
U.S., they can.
Yeah, I'm sure they can do that here too.
and if nothing else, all they need to do is justify it as if I pay the property taxes,
Mm.
and if it's less than whatever it's going to take for selling it, converting it, renting it, investing in it per year, then it's by the numbers, it's an okay deal. It doesn't
Yeah.
help the community, but it helps their numbers if they're getting their offsetting amount of money from a different location, a different investment.
Mm. And you can add into the mix the shit quality of architecture. McMansions and stuff like that. These houses that are built at basically wood frame houses that are built. They look good in their first years, but after 10 years, they're just not maintainable.
I was looking at the price of a 1-bedroom rental. My mother and I had a 2-bedroom. Same city, same area, 1 block away from where I grew up. A 1-bedroom is $2,000. When I was growing up, and well into my 20s, about 25, 26, it was only $700.
Mm.
But it was a 2-bedroom. So the rents are skyrocketing. I'm actually looking to see if I can find something a little bit more recent.
But are salaries following?
No.
No,
Okay.
that's the problem. Salaries are not following. People are having to have multiple roommates, and now there's laws that are being put on the books. Whether or not they've actually gone through, that hasn't, I don't know, but the law is that you can't have roommates.
You can't have a certain number of roommates in some states. Other states are you can't have a certain number of couples. So if you have like two married couples in an apartment that's only designed or advertised as being for one couple, you can't cohabitate together because that's too many people in one space. Other places define it as actually have definitions. Like my state actually talks about it has rules. Like if you have kids, if you have a family and all that, there are rules for if this child's over a certain age, they cannot share a bedroom anymore. They have to have their own bedroom now.
Yep.
Um, if if you have multiple adults in the home and one pair is married, they can have the master bedroom. If the other pair is married, they can have their own bedroom as long as it's a certain square footage. Um, if they're not married, they have to be guaranteed a bedroom with a bed of a certain square footage space dedicated to them. The only way two non-married people can cohabitate the same bedroom is if it's the combined square footage equals that of the separate for one person for added together with another person, so on and so forth. So there are states that already have stuff now. Some of those laws are old, like there's plenty of old weird laws. Like there are some old laws that state, in I can't remember, was it New York? It's one of the northern states, where if a man and a woman are not married and they go into a hotel, they have to have separate beds and they cannot sleep on the floor between the two beds. And the idea is it was to prevent fornication. There's some very old laws on the books. That was,
I had to deal with the kids of a certain age have to be in separate bedrooms. As soon as the other sex kid reached the age of blah, you had to separate them. And that was 5 years old.
Yeah. No, I get it. Yeah, I went through a custody battle and everything else, so I made sure that the way my household set up is everything was by the book.
Yeah. We're very, 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 very tight on time at the moment, but real quick, I think it would behoove us, even though we didn't exactly cover the actual topic, even though we got kind of sideways with it all. I think it's fair to say that we can collectively agree. Anytime we hear a particular political organization in the United States claiming to still be the group of small government, I think it's fair for us to just go ahead and collectively tell them, go fuck yourself. Would that sound about right, guys?
Yeah.
2 years, 6 months, I will be able to vote. 2 years, 6 months. I should have been able to vote from childhood, but thanks, Dad. 2 years, 6 months.
We'll get it. We'll get it.
And we're going to have a party when I get it.
Perfectly reasonable. Actually, really quickly, Joseph, are you still eligible for voting in Canadian elections?
Sorry, I was on mute. Yeah. I have no idea.
You might be. What I remember from elections, and I've worked as everything from the enumerator all the way up to a poll supervisor, which was the person that supervised all the polls at a specific location. You could be. Check with Elections Canada.
I think I need Canadian passport and an address, if I'm not mistaken.
Parents' address if they're still alive.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah. Mm-mm.
If you were born in Canada, if your parents are Canadian. Yes, see, this is the thing that pisses me off. My father's American, and I don't have automatic American citizenship because of the time period I was born. At that point in time, Americans were not keen on giving children of American soldiers in foreign countries citizenship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm.
we've got a lot of pieces in our collective past here in the U.S. that we don't think is really great, and I think it's fair for me to just kind of like that one float right there because that's about as far as I want to take that one right now.
When I talked to a senator for this area and I told him that my father's American, but I'm not, he said, "That's wrong. We should fix this."
Mm.
And I just laughed. Been trying to fix it for over 30 years. No, it's not going to be fixed. I have to wait another 2.5 years and I will get it. But then I think, do I really, really want it? Because if I leave the United States, I don't think I have to pay IRS because I'm not a citizen. But if I become a citizen, I still have to pay American taxes, no matter where I live in the world.
Yeah, you're right to think about that.
Yeah,
But out of
it's a
curiosity,
catch-22.
why the move to the U.S.?
Well, back during COVID, I had a complete breakdown of my family, complete breakdown of my living situation in Canada. My lease was up, and my now husband said, "Come down to California with me, and be warm for a couple of months. At least let's see where this relationship is." The two of us had a relationship online for a couple of years at that point, and he was pivotal in helping me when the relationship actually fell apart with my ex-husband. Because of him, I was able to get a new bed and other things, and it got me through to when I was able to start working again.
Mm.
Anyway, he paid for the ticket. It was a round trip ticket. I came down, and he said, "Okay, let's extend this visit till April." March. Monsieur Trudeau, the Right Honorable Trudeau, said that Canada was going to close its borders. If you came back to Canada, you were going to have to spend 2,000 to 5,000 of your own money and live in one of their hotels for 2 weeks as quarantine. Spouse said, "Fuck no, you're sorry." He said, "No, you're not. I'm not sending you back up there. No, 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 not going to send you up there." And we're just waiting for when we can do a quick trip up there and grab the rest of my stuff. And
Well,
during the process, we checked with my father. My father said, "I'm not sponsoring you. Go back to Canada." Okay, fine. No contact with you ever again.
Lot to unpack
can't you
there.
take your husband to Canada?
I can take my husband to Canada. I might have to use one of my MPs in order to actually get him up into Canada and get him living in Canada. But it is possible. A friend of mine was dealing with that with her husband, but he died because of the VA screwing up his medical health.
Yeah,
And
she doesn't take good care.
Yeah, she actually died because of COVID. She had a stroke about 4 months before COVID started to close everything down, and was rendered basically to be a 3-year-old, and she lasted another year. Poor woman. She was a lovely woman and a powerhouse. Like, you didn't mess with her. And she actually went to Ottawa and was protesting torture in the Middle East, I believe, as well as other things, and we were cheering her on. And when she passed, it really, her family was trying to get her from Ontario back to BC, but the place where she was at refused to release her for that flight. So she died with strangers instead of being at home with her family, with her brother and her nibblings and all that. Yeah, Canada's medical system. The difference between Canadian medical system, I had a heart attack in Canada. I got contacted by a cardiologist 3 months after my heart attack and told, yeah, I'm going to schedule you an MRI as an emergency patient. It's going to be quick. I was already down in the States and was told it was for March of 2021. Yeah, and no, I had to cancel that. Meanwhile, in the States, I need to find a cardiologist because my medicines are running out. Okay, let's find somebody. $150 every couple months, and I get months worth of my critical heart medicine.
Yeah, you're one of the lucky ones.
Yeah, problem is I can't do the same with my diabetes medicine.
Yeah, there's that too.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to have to call it here because we're pretty well out of time. So, folks, thank you, of course, as always, for being with us. Hope that you enjoyed your time with us as well. And you got something to think about for the week ahead. I apologize. I'm starting to get a little dry. This is something I mentioned at the top of the show that's been a bit of a problem for me. So getting this Prosecco didn't exactly help on that angle either, but is what it is. Guys, thank you very much for being with us. Joseph, again, it's good to have you back. Glad you're doing all right. And you take care of yourself, of course, as always.
Yeah, sorry for the sabbatical, but the road to recovery has been. Basically, I've been spending most of my weekends sleeping, so. But I'm getting back on track.
Perfectly understandable. And again, just you're here when you're here, man. Don't worry too much about it. I appreciate having you
more often. Okay, and I appreciate being here. Take care, sir.
No worries. Io, again, thank you for standing in to help out a little bit. You'll forgive me. I hope I don't have to ask you to help step in, but I'm glad that you're more than willing to pop in. Who knows? It's possible we might. We'll put it up to a vote and see if give you an opportunity of being in on a more regular basis, if you'd like.
Well, I thought you were going to need the female perspective about the reproductive issues in the Project 2025.
Hun, considering it's a 900 plus page document, I don't see that being anywhere close for us to be able to get to. Only because it's just so many pieces, but I do appreciate it. Thank you for coming on in.
Always a pleasure.
Tech?
Yep.
Good to have you. Good to have you. Good to have you back. You again, seriously, you take care of yourself. It's not quite hurricane season yet, but I'm really hoping that the season's going to be gentle up your way.
I'll be fine. I do want to bring attention to two things. I'll be quick. One is in the I've put the link to the actual PDF document for the Project 2025 Mandate for Leadership file, so we can put that in our show notes. I've also put a shortcut I was hoping to get to, but we ran out of time, and it is a article written by Joyce Arthur, written back in 2000, about the only moral abortion is my abortion, where all the anti-abortionist women were actually getting abortions and still going, well, it's good for me, but it's not good for the rest of the world. And the two actually tie together because there is a whole bunch of anti-abortion stuff in the mandate. And I think they basically took 1984, the book 1984, when they were writing the mandate, because there's actually a section in there that talks about deleting terms, sexual orientation, gender identity, diversity, literally the word diversity, equality, equity, inclusion, gender awareness, abortion, reproductive health. Why would you delete the word abortion? I mean, that's just a word. It's not even but yeah, I mean, dude, they literally just took 1984 and made it a playlist. But yeah, I put the shortcuts in there so we can throw them in the show notes and let people actually read for themselves what the heck's going on.
I appreciate that, man. Thank you much, and you take care of yourself.
Yeah, you too.
Over in the live chat, as I mentioned, Stephanie, thank you. You were not alone, but you are the only one that's specifically over there, and of course, it's always good to know that you're there and still finding something. I appreciate it. We will be back again next week. It's some of these topics really, really, really tough on me because just looking at the stuff in the news, stuff like this manifesto, it's really tough from the standpoint of just looking at it and just realizing how down punched we are as a public collective. The best we can do is just keep going. We just have to keep going. I ain't giving up just yet. Not by a long shot. So, you all take care of yourselves. Thank you kindly. Please just stay out of the sun as much as you can. Stay cool, stay hydrated. And we'll see you soon. So until the next time we're together, as always, I wish you all the peace I no longer have. I wish you the strength that I've learned. I wish you well. And as always, my lady, 19 years I am still in love. Matane Fujin. I love you. I miss you. Dream of me. Till the next time we're together, everyone. As always, good night.